Welcome to The Local, where we get together with interesting people from tech community, crypto community, AI community, and we talk to them about stuff. Nothing too technical today, but I'm joined by RG from Reppo. RG, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm RG. I founded Reppo. Reppo is a protocol that uses prediction markets to crowdsource AI training data. Broadly, we think about kind of on-demand human feedback. And our thesis is that in the age of AI, human beliefs are still valuable for training data, for product feedback. And so we're doing the whole shebang, going after $1 trillion market. So happy to dive into that.
This is fascinating for me because when we see AI, we ultimately think that that's removing the human from the process. Like we have had leaps and bounds in terms of how useful it is in terms of coding, particularly as we build. A lot of the boilerplate that would previously have been done by hand is now you speak to an agent and it produces a first version. Still need to know what you're asking, still need to know how to review it properly. But the grunt effort of getting it done is there and it's done by the machine. So where and why do humans still need to be involved in this process? What's the benefit there? What's the USP?
I would say, so it's evaluation. And it's providing context. I think those are the two main things. And the reason why humans are still valuable is because we as humans don't understand how the brain works in like a very good way, right?
Yeah.
Until that is true, I think humans will be valuable for AI because let's say like, you look at this glass of beer and you're like, you get an idea about maybe a strategy or something, right? Like there's no way today that a neuroscientist can answer how you got that idea.
Okay.
It's just like your brain's making connections, maybe, because past experiences,
so
right?
Sorry to interrupt. It's the tangential stuff.
Exactly.
It's
exactly. It's like incongruent, kind of like, like in the moment stuff, which, which kind of, at Reppo, we actually call it like, we formalize it by calling it disagreement or continuous learning data pipelines. Like, like in Reppo's case, our system is designed to update every 2 days. It can be, you can design it in a way. The protocol is more generalized, so you can design it to update, every hour even. Yeah. But that's kind of the idea. Like today, I could be like, I really like this beer, and maybe 2 days later, I can, I don't really like this beer because I probably tasted something better, right? And so that preference changed. That kind of, my human belief in some sort, changed. And that has to be captured somehow. Because if you're talking about personal AI, you're talking about, like how, if AGI and all these things, which should work for everyone, then there needs to be like a constant update of beliefs, of, like understanding of value systems. Yep. So yeah, that's why humans are still valuable.
And where did you, what was your path to this? How did you end up with the idea? Are there competitors in the space doing this sort of stuff already? And if so, what is Reppo doing that's differencing or distancing the project from them? What was the background?
Yeah, I'll answer the second one first. I'm very happy to say that, as of today, we don't have any competitors in Web3. No one is using prediction markets to crowdsource AI training data. Yeah. We are uniquely doing that. Maybe it's not going to be the case after this podcast, but that's fine. No,
you're smashing together two of the hottest narratives at the moment, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Prediction markets, like super, super hot, huge valuations, and AI at just, orders of magnitude bigger than that as well.
Exactly.
And so the combination is, it
is very beautiful. And I think the main thing I want to highlight on that, and then we'll go back to how I got here, is we actually came up with this concept of a synthetic prediction market, right? So in a normal prediction market, and you guys are closer to the idea of markets than me. What happens is, it's very outcome driven, right? So it's basically like, you see, like people make some bets, and then, you get an outcome and you're trying to predict the outcome. That's what these like normal prediction markets like Polymarket, like that's what they're doing. In Reppo's case, you are trying to predict the quality of the content that is being published. So you have, just to not go into too deep, but the way a business like Scale AI would work, right? You have a bunch of raw data that is provided, or there's crowdsourced, sometimes most often scraped from the internet without permission. And then on the other side, you have the jobs being sent to, in a lot of time, developing countries like India, Vietnam, where people are getting paid $2 an hour. And that's how we've literally trained AI for the last 10 years.
Right, okay.
And so in Reppo's case, we convert that into a prediction market. So someone contributes raw data, and it's not scraped data. So you actually generate the data using all these AI tools or non-AI tools. You kind of come and share your creativity. And on the other side, other people are coming and, in the 2-day cycles, they're predicting which content is going to get the most number of votes. But the main difference here is that when you're voting, I'm trying to predict which, the way the prediction thing happens is we use this novel on-chain commit reveal scheme. Basically, it's a privacy solution, so you don't need to know who you're voting for. So the kind of abstracted away in Polymarket, if someone's making a bet for or against, you can see it live, right? You can see the odds. In this case, it's a synthetic prediction market, so you can't really see the odds. The way it works, it's you commit your votes, and then 2 days later, you reveal your votes. It's like a game of poker, and then everything settles on chain. And this happens again and again and again. And what's actually happening is the beliefs are changing. So in cycle 1, you had A, B, C. B got the most number of votes. It gets the most popular. Same ABC in cycle 2, but maybe now A is more popular. And what is most valuable to an AI company is what changed between B and A, right? And I think that's actually what we're trying to capture. And that is the most valuable information in today's world. Like evolution of beliefs is more valuable than knowing what is the belief.
Interesting. So the rate of change of them and how they change, and potentially understanding why they change.
And also understanding the disagreement. Like, why do people disagree? Like, what thing changed in the world, maybe, that got people to prefer B over A?
Right. What external influence might have happened in that time frame.
Exactly.
And does that mean that your natural paying clients or customers are the large AI companies?
Not yet. I think we'll eventually get there. We need to benchmark some of the first few data sets built using prediction markets. We're in the process of benchmarking those. Also, because the kind of data we're focusing on right now is called post-training data. So of course, big companies like Scale AI, Surge AI, they do serve pre-training where OpenAI or big companies are training pre-training the model. But a lot of the demand for AI training moving forward is actually going to come from post-training. So what post-training means is fine-tuning. There's this terms like SFT, reinforcement learning. So you most likely are not going to create a lot of people are not going to create their own they call it state-of-the-art models, like SOTA models. But you're going to take it, and then you're going to take a DeepSeek or something,
right?
And then fine-tune it for your purpose,
for your context, for your situation,
right? And so you need 2 things for that, right? You need 3 things: data, infra, capital. You need compute, you need data, and you need some capital. Right. So
to pay for the compute.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're right now starting with the data layer, where we are allowing you to crowdsource that data, which needs to be curated. We don't like to call it labeling and annotation, because labeling and annotation is kind of not really what's happening anymore.
You're doing more than that.
We're doing more than that. We're adding this as I said, we're adding a layer of belief, a layer of evaluation to the data.
And change in beliefs on the same data over time as well. Right, fascinating. I think I could talk about this for hours, but it might not make the best podcast. So apologies if I go deep on this with RG. You're a founder. First time founding. What drove you to put yourself into the founder's seat that I know so well?
It's so I used to work at Filecoin Protocol Labs. Amazing ecosystem. And when I was working there, I was doing a bunch of things. I was working on kind of scaling the network, both storage providers. So Filecoin is Airbnb for data storage. And so you have storage providers, and then you have people wanting to store data, working to scale that. And on a network like Filecoin, which is worth $1 billion or more now, whenever there's incentives, there's going to be some abuse. Right? So people are going to try to farm those incentives. And so one of my jobs was to use AI and ML, mostly ML at the time, machine learning, to predict abusive actors. And to do that, I needed access to what we call off-chain data. In the world of data storage, data actually has to move physically. I learned that when I was working at Filecoin, that 60%, maybe the number is less now, 60% of the world's data moves in shipping containers. In hard drives.
Seriously? Around the world?
It's wild,
No, because, I don't believe it.
I mean, maybe the numbers changed, but literally, because a lot of the, global south, so to say, doesn't have a very sophisticated, fiber optics network. So you literally have to, The standard, again, when I was at Filecoin 2021 to 2023, the standard was like have at least 5 copies of the data.
Yeah.
Like that's the standard in the data storage industry, most likely more. And so you literally have, copies of data being uploaded on a hard drive, being shipped from, France to Belgium, or even like from North America to like a different country.
For redundancy reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
And so to kind of coming back, I actually needed access to this data. Like, what is the cost of moving the data? What is the cost of energy usage in data centers? Because this is the kind of off-chain data that would help me as inputs into my ML model.
Yeah.
If I could know that, like Marcus is a storage provider on the Filecoin network and he uses this much energy, this is his cost to move the data, and he is asking for these many incentives, I can basically build a model to predict, is Marcus going to abuse the incentives that we're giving him, right? But the challenge was that I did not have access to this off-chain data. Like if I were to come to you and I'm like, Marcus, can you give me this data? You're like, why? I'm like, oh, I want to build a nice model so I can detect fraud and abuse. They're like, no, go away, right? And so I think the idea sparked, where I was like, okay, what we're missing is we have money, we have capital, we have smart people. We're missing this incentive layer.
Yep.
How can I incentivize Marcus to share this data with me and give him something instead of like some NFT, not some random NFT
something
DAO
with
tokens,
value.
something with value,
a reflection of the effort and time that he's spending engaging with the protocol,
and also like make sure that it's not like a one-time thing, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually make sure that Marcus can actually benefit down the line when I'm using his data into the ML model? And so that's really how it started. And then through some trials and tribulations and like any startup, we went through some pivots and just landed on, this interesting V token model that Aerodrome uses. And I think Curve Finance came up with it first. We created our own version of a prediction market. We just thought, someone has data, someone needs to label it, because in this case, I was the person labeling it, which was not great.
Not sustainable.
I was bringing my own biases,
Yeah, and bringing your own biases.
And so that's why I was like, okay, it's a two-sided marketplace. Someone has data, raw data. Someone has understanding and like context, so to say, beliefs, like the ability to evaluate what the data means and give it some weight. And how do you do this in the most decentralized manner with the goal of decentralized not being like political, the goal of decentralized being to reduce noise.
Yeah.
Because that's what you want to do in an AI training or ML training, right? And so really, I think that's how it came about. And eventually, when we first started out, when we spun out of Protocol Labs and Filecoin, we were focused on depends. Depends was like very hot, I would say, like beginning of 2024. Of course, crypto works in cycles. So we built out the protocol, the incentive layer and all that stuff. And then we were at an event and a researcher from Amazon came up to us and he was like, hey, do you guys have... we were like presenting something and they were like, do you have collaboration logs? And I was like, what do you mean by collaboration logs? They're like, basically, I want the chat history of you talking to the AI and I'm willing to pay you big bucks for it. And I was like, that is the weirdest thing I've heard. But also this is the coolest thing I've heard because this is the first time running a startup in crypto. Someone's told me I'll pay you, right? I think like people in crypto, unfortunately it's mostly VC funded and it takes a long time to find PMF, longer than, like a Web2 startup. And so this is like kind of the aha moment. I was like, okay, what is this guy going to do with this data, right?
Did you sort of question like what? Yeah, exactly. Why is this valuable to you for a start?
Exactly. And I think what they were looking into that data, the collaboration logs, is basically like how is this person who is talking to the AI? How are they reinforcing their biases? Like reinforcement learning, right? Okay. So RLHF, as they call it. And it became clear to me. So I went down that rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, what is RLHF? I wasn't necessarily like playing a lot with RLHF. We were mostly, when I was doing ML and AI at Filecoin, I was mostly kind of, it was like basic level, like machine learning, just take some data, like put some weights to it, and then train a model. And then I went down this rabbit hole of like what's happening in AI training. I learned that OpenAI and some of these big labs are spending anywhere from $750 million to $1 billion a year. The market itself today, I might be wrong on these figures, but I think the labs are spending close to like $8 to $10 billion to acquire this data. And it actually makes sense. Like when you use ChatGPT, or anyone in the audience here has used ChatGPT or even Instagram, they ask you this question, like, which one do you prefer, A or B?
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And we just give that data for free.
Yep.
Because we're like, oh yeah, sure.
User agreement, tick it up, T's and C's.
Exactly. Yeah, we're like, wow, like, oh, it's so nice. You're asking about my opinion. We're like, no, like it's like literally farming your opinions and becoming better. And so I think like that's exactly what's happening in real time.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And so my mental model of AIs was that obviously it went out and got all of this information off the internet that was ever there, all of human history that had been put in electronic format, and was trained initially on that. And then there was potentially an evolution or expansion of data sets where they began to speak to experts to some extent on their particular topic of knowledge to be able to refine, similar to what you said earlier on. They have your basic model and then you specialize it within certain domains that way. But the belief and the belief changing piece is like next level, right? It's like, how do people's assessment of stuff evolve over time?
Yeah, I mean, it's next level, but if you think about it, like the reason why finance is the most, money making in hot industries, it does come down to that. It's like every day, a bunch of people working across finance, like either like small shops or hedge funds, or you guys are actually doing that. You're like working in information markets. You're like thinking about how beliefs are changing, how and like how is that impacting certain markets. And I think if you think about the idea of data markets, it's actually very similar. Like data markets used to be static, so to say. You like create a data set, you train something, and then that's all it knows, right? And it's like that's actually what makes it dumb.
The same with backtesting and strategies, and the idea of regime change when you build a model to trade or act in a certain way in the market, and it only knows what you've given it data-wise. Right. So you inherently can fall foul of overfitting straight away, and so you need to be very, very careful about that sort of thing. But also, it's only ever going to be as good as or applicable as the regime that it was in and it was built upon. But the markets constantly shift. There's evolutions in technology. Down at the microstructure level, you have people evolving their hardware so that a behavior that was in this historic data that you built your trading strategy on might just be absent for very good reasons going forward. So yeah, okay, really interesting. And so what's next for Repo? Where are we going now? What are we going to see from you?
We launched November 21st, as I said. Today is probably day 74. If I did the math,
nice.
So we're
still
very
counting in
early.
days.
Yeah. And I think it's the first time that what we created is it's not a copy paste. Like we literally innovated from scratch.
Yeah.
So the first thing we needed to do was make sure that this actually works outside theory and practice. We're very happy to say that yes, the system works. People have been earning, depending on the token price, anywhere from $500 to $1,500 every 2 days between raw data providers and people who are curating the data. They're sharing, right now it's 50-50. So 50% goes to the data curators and 50% goes to the data contributors, raw data providers.
Yeah.
And this is happening, as we speak right now, which is, I think, very exciting to me because I think, we have talked for the longest time like, oh, Web3 should give power back to the data owners and all that stuff, but it never became true. And we actually don't try to go gung-ho on that. We say profit over narrative. That's actually our motto. We say people should be motivated by profit.
Yeah. They
should not be motivated by some goodness of their heart or some good deed. It's just never it's not sustainable. So what we're saying is prediction. That's where prediction markets come in. You do a good prediction. If you think that so whenever someone comes on Repo, let's say someone is trying to create a data set for robotics, specifically to train a robot to do household chores, right? So there's three actors here. There's one person we call the subnet owner. They own this workspace. They come and say hey, this is the data set goal. These are my instructions for the data curators. These are my instructions for the data rock or data contributors. And then this subnet owner comes and actually market buys Repo tokens and incentivizes these two other actors. And these two other actors are basically competing every 2 days. To answer your question, what's next? We want to scale this, across domains. So of course we have robotics, depends. We have market research. We have people doing, adult entertainment. We have people doing some other really cool domains where AI is going to touch everything. But we really want to kind of hit home the point from like a mechanism design standpoint that Repo is actually a deflationary protocol. Unlike some other protocols where subnets mine emissions from the network, in Repo, subnets are actually market buying the token and incentivizing the two actors.
So you got that demand side on the
exactly,
on the
and the value accrual is actually very, kind of like it's very actually inbuilt. I am personally, as a core contributor to Repo, I'm not a big fan of this idea of buyback and burn. What we do is when someone actually buys Repo from the market, they're incentivizing the publishers and the owners, but the publishers and the data curators. And Repo actually just takes like a 5 basis points of that. So it's actually the designing the entire economy in Repo. Of course, we can give them options to pay in stables and whatnot. But I think the next goal is really scaling that, showing that you can build a protocol which is where the token utility is the centerpiece. One really cool protocol that I'm a big fan of is called SpiceNet. They're this like DeFi brokerage network. You have Ethereum on Solana, and I have, and my product is on Base today. It will just do the brokerage for you. You don't have to do bridging or anything.
Part of the thesis of low-tech, all of those decisions about which chain you're on, which stable coin you actually want to hold as a reflection of dollars, it all gets abstracted away in the next 5 years. And so, yes, you're using a token, and yes, it might be a particular token from a particular project, but you don't really know and or care anymore about what chain it's on.
Yeah, for us, it's happening next month.
Yeah.
So it's happening next month. Yeah.
And how are you funded at the moment? VC backing or?
We did raise money from VCs.
How did you find the raise process?
As a first-time founder, it's grilling. I think I probably talked to over 150 VCs, got 120, 130 no's. You just have to go through the grind. That's just how it is. I didn't necessarily have like some fancy like crypto background, right? I'm sure I think the Filecoin and the Protocol Labs network helped a lot. And I did get some good intros, but it's still kind of like, it's hard there.
It is hard. It's a process. Did you find that your narrative and your pitch became like razor sharp during those 150 conversations?
Yeah. I think that's one of the mistakes I made. I think I was basically iterating too often. Because at one point we were doing risk and reputation for deepened networks. Like that's actually what we came out to do. Protocol Labs. Because at the time, and it's still actually an unsolved problem. It's called deepened verification. We don't have to go there. But we went there and we were like, okay, we're going to solve deepened verification. So we're going to build a network to build risk and reputation models. So like kind of like the idea being building the what's the credit rating agency in the US?
Standard & Poor's or Moody's.
Moody's, We're going to beat Moody's for deepins. And at the time, I think like there was some traction. We actually got like a lot of inbound. And then I think deepins kind of died out and people were like, okay, like, no. And then it's just like kind of crazy as well. So as a founder, not only are you competing with narratives changing in crypto, you're also like, trying to find like, like the PMF, right?
The idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder how many startups have been funded based on that sort of, forward sort of patter, which is always go back to like Airbnb for, or Moody's for, or like rating agency for. I think there's something nice about that. It captures ideas in even shorter way than an elevator pitch.
Exactly. Yeah.
We found when we were raising for low tech that our initial assumptions about what would interest investors were way off. Our patter, our ambition, our vision was not refined enough to be able to grab attention at all. And so we went through, I think we spoke to 123 people for our first round. And it was like, okay, that process is necessary because it's made us better as a business going forward, because we know what the people who are very smart and thinking about what the future looks like all the time, what they're interested in. And you collate all these pieces of information and feed it back into what you want to build or what you think is exciting or what you're passionate about. It is quite a process, quite a grind.
It is quite a grind. And I think, I was also kind of like thrown in the deep end because, yes, I had some advisors from Protocol Labs. But overall, I think I was just kind of like, go raise money. How much to raise? Well, you got to decide it. I had a co-founder, she left and definitely made some mistakes once, in the process. So definitely I think like the first founder journey is something that's very precious. I wouldn't trade for anything. You can't really learn this in school at all. You just have to kind of put yourself in the deep end. There may be like at least one time we almost went bankrupt. You just have to go through that process. So yeah.
And introductions are hugely valuable. So we always try and, certainly within our network, help with introductions across our investors so that people don't feel that they're starting this without anyone without anyone helping. And where does virtuals sit in the Repo network? I know you had a very successful launch on virtuals.
Yeah, I think the virtuals ecosystem is something that's very unique. I think they have this idea of building, agentic capital markets, robotics capital markets. And I think like this is actually a really interesting quote that Ben Horowitz from E16Z said 2 days ago, or I mean, I heard it 2 days ago, but he probably said it before. He was on a panel and he was saying that for the longest time that he has been in tech, right? Like Ben Horowitz, he said that you could not solve a problem quicker by throwing money at it. But that is no longer true. We're finally at a place where intelligence, as long as you have the data, you have the infra and the money, and so you have compute and the money, you can actually throw money at a problem and you can solve it quicker.
Yeah.
Right. Again, like you can disagree with that, but I think there's something there. And what that is making clear that execution matters, but production is no longer the challenge. Yep. Right. Production is more accessible.
Yeah.
Of course, quality matters, all of that stuff, but people can code, people can create, creative content on the go. And so the two things that really matter are access to capital. And if you have capital, you have a lot of power, and access to, in the case of AI training, your data, access to the inputs that go into that creative process, right? Because if you and I are both using ChatGPT, well, you can only be better than me maybe if you're good at prompting a bit more. Right. But that's like not statistically significant. But if you have more capital than me, then maybe you hire, some big shot, like artist, and now you can actually capitalize, because distribution is still king. I think like the idea that capital markets are going to be significant, I think that's what virtuals is about today.
Interesting.
And that's what they actually helped us a lot. They've built this really cool mechanism called a unicorn launchpad. We did almost a fair launch. We launched at a 2 mil FDV. Our all-time high was 51, right, in the 74 days. So it's been a great ride. They have this really interesting mechanism actually called automated capital formation.
Yeah.
So as your valuation or FDV, so to say, goes up, you actually going to generate cash.
Right.
Right. I think that's how virtuals fits in. And I do really believe that in the world today, yes, you can go work the traditional route, work with, market makers and, launch a token. But I think there's some consensus, maybe this is my circle, but there is some consensus that launching at a low float, low FTV is the best thing you can do for your project, for marketing. That's what we did. And I would say the Repo community is so strong, not because I paid anyone, right? Because those are people who kind of got in early.
Yeah, they need to be not the ones who are the exit liquidity at the end of the day. And that's often the case if the FTV is huge on day one.
Yeah.
We've seen that there's lots of different trends, certainly in the time that low tech's been in the space, around what a good launch looks like. And for me, sort of stepping back and thinking about market structure and the stuff that I know, or we know as a business from traditional finance, these new ways of going about capital formation for early stage projects are one of the most exciting. And there's definitely been trends that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years. So many people seeking the big listing as their first sort of TGE place where they launch, right through to now, definitely over the last year, case where people will go, okay, I'm going to go low float, I'm going to go low FTV, and I want to be organic. And that means not going with a big centralized listing. It means finding a sensible launch pad, doing a fair launch, and actually executing on my roadmap to grow value for my project, my protocol, and therefore, hopefully that flows through to the token if there is one, and the community on the side as well.
I think it's also kind of helpful to break down this idea of a community, right? A community is not just a bunch of people who are holding your token, right? Of course, everyone, it's a financial, it has some financial utility to it. So
certainly in Repo's case, so these people that are actually using Repo the whole time and have a lot of probably tied up in it and want it to succeed as a project.
Yeah. Right now, as you speak, you can go to Reppo.ai. We have about 7 million Repo tokens. Give or take 6.93 million tokens like just community locked. People bought the tokens, locked it in the vault, right? And that's just like, I mean, as a founder, I think that's like the biggest kind of like proud moment, right? Success metric, that you build something that people believe in. And, you know, like, cause I think like, I personally don't think like just buying your token is like how someone can show belief. Is like, you know, they're buying it, they're locking the token, like they literally don't have access to it. And then in our case, we don't give some like, you know, crazy inflation-based APY to lock the token. We're just like, you gotta lock the token to use the product, you know? And so I think that's, you know, and so we take that very seriously. And so every decision we make, looking at, you know, like what sort of, you know, as we grow, like, you know, maybe we need to bring market makers. So like thinking like about folks like low tech, right? Like how do you actually make sure and keep those individuals who took those early bet on you and kept on, you know, believing in you and the project? How do you put them front and center? Because I think that actually is such a key piece in crypto today. Like, because the reality is like once you've done TGE, you know, the investors who invested in you, like they did their job. They gave you the capital to build something, and now they're looking for a return. So like, yes, they will be there for you to still make intros, but you know, they're kind of like, it's kind of like they've handed on the baton.
Yeah.
And I think what happens in most often for projects that launch at a very high FDV is they don't have someone to like, you know, serve, right? Because the reality is like, it's, you know, depending if you're building a chain, you know, we only have 10,000 developers in crypto. There's like a report from Electric Capital. It's open source. So sure, again, you know, every chain builder can go to like the same set of developers, not very useful. If you're building a product, then you actually have to have users. Now, the users can come from two places: crypto natives, mostly DeFi, or you know, the broader world. But I don't think I think the product I can count it on my hands, like the number of products that have successfully abstracted away, like Polymarket, for example, has abstracted away the UX to the extent that like the average person can use it.
I mean, we only interact programmatically via API, but they've done a very good job of removing the fact that it's sitting on top of a blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. And so, my point was just that, like I think it's very helpful if you launch at a low FDV, low float, to find a set of people, even if like today, you know, we have like completely organically, we have like about 17,755 token holders, right?
That's so cool.
In 74 days, right? And I'm very proud of that. I would rather look at that metric than like, you know, the trading price of the token, because those are the people who are taking a bet and believing. And I think, like, you know, like this used to, I remember my dad was actually, he used to run, he started an industry, you know, in India. And in his time, you could actually do IPOs with the intention to actually go raise money from the public.
Okay.
I don't think that's how IPOs work today, at least, right? IPOs are more of like an exit than like an entry. But I think that's what tokenization is going to do for businesses. I think in the age of AI, in the age of, you know, where, as I said, you know, production is no longer the moat or the hurdle.
Yeah.
Tokenization of ideas, tokenization of businesses, trying and testing things out. If it works out, great. If it didn't work out, well, and it's not a bad thing. Like a bunch of people made some money and, you know, on to the next thing. I think people look down on it. But if it doesn't have like long-term value, you can actually still kind of like, you know, work on generating profit for some people. I don't think that should be the norm, but I do think that the idea of tokenization is very powerful because it allows you to like, you know, like iterate and test really quickly. I saw this piece that Balaji wrote maybe 2 months ago, where he actually said that the total GDP, like value of ICM, into capital markets, is actually more, if not equal, than like the total kind of value of all the publicly traded companies. Combine the S&P 500 and the New York Stock Exchange.
Goodness me.
And it's insane. And his whole thesis was like, it's going to keep surpassing.
Yep.
And internet native businesses are going to become a thing. And I mean, you know, I believe that.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that makes sense. Given you think about the network effect and the distribution power of the internet, that logically it kind of makes sense. I wonder if in 2026 we're going to see agents autonomously issuing their own tokens for the first time. It wouldn't surprise me. Like if,
I mean, there's a little project out there. I don't know if it was legit, but with the whole Molt book thing, there's this project called Clonch. We know where, which is actually doing that.
Doing exactly that. This February 3rd, and it's happening already. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. I have a really cool example actually of one of the ways where we learned the utility of how we kind of got to Reppo. So this is actually a big fund based in London, and I have a friend who works there. I wouldn't name the fund, but so we were trying to understand how do these funds access private data? Or basically proprietary data, right? And so we were working at the time with the Deepin company and this Deepin project, and this Deepin project had a lot of interesting IoT data. So one of the projects they were doing was they were deploying these sensors on airline tarmacs and collecting data about heat and very granular data. And so I went to this, my friend at his desk, and I was like, "Hey, do you think this data is useful to you?" And he's like, "Okay, let me talk to my team." He's like, "Yeah, we'll actually take this data." And at the time, of course, they didn't tell me because they would be revealing the alpha and the trading strategy. I think a couple of months later, I was like, "Yeah, so what do you guys do with the data?" And they basically told me that they took that data about heat maps on the tarmac, and then they took the data from air traffic controllers and used those two data points to basically short and long airline stocks.
Okay.
And so I just thought it was like a wild thing. I'm sure there's crazier things that happen when it comes to proprietary data at HFT shops. But I think that was a big thing for us to understand that that AI training has to go private. Founder of Oracle, he came on stage. This is probably beginning of Jan sometime. He was at an event, and he basically said this. He's like, right now, everyone's training AI using public data. Open source is great, but you can actually have open source plus private data. And I believe that that's actually going to be a big thing, not just in Web3, but also in Web2, where private data, but still open source, is going to become a big thing. Because that's just the reality of things, right?
And we've seen this narrative, particularly with some of the layers that sit in between, like privacy layers that can anonymize the data or completely hash it, but can still be used on the training models to make sense of it. And I think you're completely right. There are lots of domains in which an open source model plus your private proprietary information becomes very valuable for the company that's training it. Things like law companies and stuff where they've got tens of years of cases that they've worked on and the various decisions that have been made, and they can run their best-in-class AI model on that so that internally they don't, possibly have to employ as many people or the same skill sets as they used to be able to get the same results. I agree. I think we're seeing it already. But the distribution of where these, I guess we're still quite early, AI models are going is already into everything. In the same way that the internet has kind of seeped into everything. I don't think there'll be much out there that isn't AI enabled, even if it's not just marketing speak. Everything will be AI enabled soon.
That's one of the things we do actually. We have this concept on Reppo called public subnets and private subnets. So a private subnet, low-tech can actually come and spin up a private subnet, and you actually have access controls of who you let in. So we build, for example, you could say that, I only want people who have trading experience. So we use zk-TLS to basically verify that, and then only allow those kind of data curators. And then only people who have experience, a certain amount of experience, to publish trading strategies. And you can actually crowdsource this data set.
Nice.
But it's also all private to you, right? But it's still permissionless. I think this idea of permissionless privacy, I'm obsessed with it. I think it's underexplored. Only very few people talk about it. I think when permissionless and privacy come together, then I think that
the powerful things.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that piqued my interest today was the fact that Musk is going to smash together SpaceX and XAI. Do you think that's what's driving that? Is it economies of scale? Is it the fact that it's this AI seeping into everything? Does he really need to put AI into space, or is it purely about
data centers?
Data centers.
I think I came across this when I first learned about it. There's a big startup in Seattle. Well, I don't think they're a startup anymore. They're doing data centers in space. Right? So I think that maybe we'll eventually see compute in space. So, because just think about it, when I was at Filecoin, I got to visit a few data centers, data storage facilities. I think we're just, it's actually a waste of land. If you're just storing data, you can actually be more efficient because, if you're in space, you can use the sun energy.
Cold, you got the unlimited source of power.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. Of course, I think like the vision with, Elon Musk, of course, he's a complex person, but it might also be that, like with Mars and everything,
Mars,
it's like instead of like, is a latency and all that stuff, right? Like with data transfer. When people think about data, they talk a lot about storage. But one thing I learned at Filecoin was the whole game is about retrievals. I think, maybe the audience would be interested in this. Things like Netflix actually pays so much money to what they call CDN networks, content delivery networks. And when I first learned about it, I was like insane. Like literally if like to serve you the content, like, maybe like 1 second faster, they're paying so much. I'm like, I don't like maybe the average, as a user, like if it takes 1 extra second for the movie to load, I don't care. But I'm sure like, there's like someone cares. But I think that's actually a big reason I would assume that it's not so much about putting the data in, it's about how do you get the data out.
It's interesting you mentioned CDNs. It's something we bump up into with some exchanges and in terms of how we get information in and out of those venues as well. A lot of them have CDNs or CDN capabilities around them for very good reasons. So yeah, it's interesting to hear it mentioned in another guise. Our first read of that was that certainly data centers in space makes huge sense from cooling and power. But smashing these two companies together now, like AI element of it, I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, it probably sells, but yeah.
He likes being in the news. He likes being in the news as well, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think he does. Margie, thanks very much for a fascinating talk. I think everyone who listens to that will be wrapped with the idea, probably looking to get involved with Reppo as well. So thanks very much for spending the time with me